Hi, everyone. Welcome to Doctors and Coaches podcast. Today's topic is sportsmanship and physical education, and with Dr. Cindy Sanders.
Hey, this is, I think it's so interesting when we talk about sportsmanship because I think, now I could be wrong, but if I say sportsmanship to you, what do you immediately think about?
Thinking like being a sportsmanship in a group, like in a team.
Yeah, in a team, right? And usually it's a sport that we are going to exhibit sportsmanship when we're playing tennis or when we're playing golf or when we're playing football, right? Right? It's attached to this identifiable sport. And I think that sportsmanship also applies to every other arena in your life, right? You need to be a good sport when you're gambling in Las Vegas and you lose, right? You need to be a good sport if you're negotiating for a car that you want and someone comes in and buys it out from underneath you, right? I mean, I think there are
Right.
all kinds of places that we need to be a good sport. I think we also need to know how to use sportsmanship when we accelerate. If you win a contest and you don't demonstrate good sportsmanship, everybody's going to hate you for winning the contest, right? Because you've made them all feel less than. So sportsmanship, although it absolutely applies to sports, any of those physical activities that we can do, I believe that that notion of sportsmanship, of I want to win for sure, but I don't want to win because you got hurt, right? I want to win because I played better today than I normally play. I did better than I normally do. But I don't, and I think poor sportsmanship is I want to win and I want you to feel bad and I want you to do lousy and I want, right? It's not that I want to do my best. I want you to do awful. And I think that sometimes we forget that. So for me, sportsmanship is across the board in your life. And you can call it something else, but that really is what it is. And I know Coach often says there are so many life lessons that you can learn from sports, and I agree with that. And I think sportsmanship is one of them. And then, before we get started on this topic, there to me is a humongous difference between a physical activity, physical education, and sports. And I want to talk about that before we go. So for me, when we talk about sports, I want, as the kid, I want to learn the skills I need to compete with other people who have those skills and have an opportunity to win, right? That's what I want. That's why I'm doing it. And maybe I'll do it like with soccer. Maybe I'll do it at an AYSO level, but maybe I'll do it at a club level. Maybe I'll do it at a professional level. But what I want is the skill sets and not just the skills, but the schema of when to use those skills. And that's what I want if I'm in sports. And so one of the things and it's an image, not that I could ever coach basketball because I don't know enough about it, but it's an image that is very vibrant to me. So when you see somebody driving, bouncing the ball and driving toward the basket, and then they do that layup, where they jump up in the air and they slam the ball down, that's pretty exciting to watch. And so they have the skill set to do that. They can dribble, they can leap, they can put the ball in the bucket, right? That's their skill set, and they know the order of it. But the schema would be, when should I do that? So if the same person did that at mid-court, not close to the basket, we'd all think they were crazy, right? What are you doing, right? Because they have to have a sense of when is that the best thing to do. And so I think that's what you learn in sports. I think you that the skills are very specific and they're very detailed, right? Hold your hand this way, have your fingertips go toward the basket, right? Flip your blah blah blah, all those things. So that's what I think sports is. I think physical education is about not only getting to play a sport and learning the basic rules, but it's also about learning to understand your physical body, right? Uh, what is my heart rate when I'm resting? What is my heart rate when it's been elevated? Why is it important to warm up? Why is it important to cool down? Why is it important to look at my respiration rate? Why is it important to know which muscle I'm talking about? Why, right? To me, physical education is about educating you about your physical body, how you interact in the world physically, and also having you learn to play certain things, games and whatever, if that makes sense. Then I think there's physical activity. Physical activity is fun. You don't have to be good at anything. You just go out and you play. You can go and play Mother May I. You can play triangle tag. You can play cups up, cups down. I don't have to be a great athlete. If I want to play sports, I have to have a degree of athleticism because otherwise I'm wasting your time and mine because I'm going to always be in right field, right? I'm going to, it's just the way it is. I have to have some athletic talent to do that. In physical education, I don't have to have that athletic talent, but I got some skills and right. But in physical activity, I'm going to get to experience a warm up. I'm going to get it to experience a cool down. I'm going to get to experience my heart rate, my respiration rate. I'm going to experience it, but I'm going to do it in a fun way so that even if I'm the world's lousiest athlete, I can do it. It's for me too. And so when we talk about this sportsmanship, I think that for me, and I'm not saying that that's right, I'm just telling you it's for me. I think that there are all those levels. So, what happens to the person who's highly athletic when sportsmanship has to come into play, when who they're interacting with is a physical activity person at best? Right? They don't have the skills. They're not competitive. They're just hanging out. They're having a good time, right? But they're not driven in the same way. So these folks have to learn how to have sportsmanship because chances are they're going to lose. But the sports person who has lots of athleticism and lots of talent has to figure out how to cope with these people who aren't talented. So I think that sportsmanship is what covers the whole gamut. How do I do these things? And also I think that when you go into well, I think in any of those levels, there will be places where you shine. Like you might be really great at basketball and horrible at football if you're a sports person. You might in physical education, you might be really good at learning about the muscles and the bones and warming up, but lousy at playing a game. In physical activity, you might not ever push yourself to really elevate your heart. Right? I'm just going to kind of dabble a little bit because I don't like it feeling like it's going to pump out of my chest. So I just think that it's across the board. So, like I said, maybe that's just my differentiation. But when I think about sportsmanship, that's what I think about. How does that attitude go across all levels of physical activity, and how can it be applied to the world in other areas? So I don't know if you want to add to that because you're into physical activity, you're into workout, you're into all that.
Yeah, most definitely. So I think they're a good job right there. Like, I don't play sports. I used to play sports before, but definitely sportsmanship just plays a big role. Um, just it's definitely a big deal for the kids to learn at a young age because
Yeah.
it goes way along when you grow up as well. Like, being a good sportsmanship, like at your work area and around your peers, like
Mhm.
that plays a big role for everybody, for anybody.
It does. And I only saw this like on a nanosecond on the news. So if you saw it and you know more about it than me, awesome. There was
Oh,
a tennis player, a professional tennis player, and he didn't like the call that the umpire made
mhm.
or the whatever you call that person that makes the calls on tennis. And he did everything he could to incite the crowd to be against that man who had made the call, which to me was a total lack of sportsmanship. And he should have been kicked out and never allowed to play again. That's how I felt. And like I said, I only saw like a minute of a newscast. Do you know anything more about that? What happened? Did you see that?
So I actually one did happen recently, which was two females. One of the players, she was not good at sport. This was different. Was more different. She was just not happy found that the she got beat, that she lost the game. So she just started like arguing with the winner, like right on the middle of the court, and just started calling her out. And like, it just looked bad on national television because like the whole world was watching and just saw that she had
Yeah.
no good sportsmanship. And her actions kind of did draw her to like have an interview and basically apologize for the way she reacted. But it's things like that. Like, if you didn't learn as a kid, like, it will affect you
Right.
as a grown up.
Yes,
Yeah.
and that's ugly behavior. And for me, when I see a sports person, especially an elite athlete, right? If you're playing in the US Open, you are an elite athlete. If you are playing in the Super Bowl or you're playing on a pro team, you are an elite athlete because everybody doesn't get to make those teams. And for you to demonstrate that behavior is just I think you should never get to play again. Now I'm sure that that's a little harsh, but that's how I feel. I think, I don't want kids watching you and thinking that's okay. And wasn't there some football player that did something in the last week or two and he had to pay a
Yes.
big fine? What happened with that? Because that certainly wasn't a
So
sportsmanship thing either.
yeah, so I think it was like a 10 million fine that they had to pay because yeah, they one of the football players, he basically just hit him, like he hit him with his helmet. So then it just became like a big rumble, and then it was just all the other teams against each other. And I mean, like, and they just started football season too. So it's
Yeah.
like
So
they
he
didn't.
was hitting
Yeah.
the opposite team with his helmet?
Yeah, I think he hit him with yeah, I think he hit him in the helmet, and then afterwards it became a big rumble where just everybody just started fighting with everybody,
Yeah.
and they
And
got
you
big.
want to go,
Yeah,
not okay, right? And so when
yeah,
kids see those kinds of behaviors and there's not some repercussion, then they think it's okay for them to do as well. And it's really not okay. Just because now I'm not saying that you can't ever say, for instance, you can disagree with a call. A referee, an umpire, whatever you call the judge person, they can certainly be wrong. That's very possible that they missed it, they blinked at the wrong time, blah, blah, blah. And I think that you can respectfully challenge that. I'd like for you to reconsider blah, blah, because this is how I saw it from my vantage point, right? But to be a bad sport about it, I don't think wins you friends and people to be with you. Yeah. So is that
definitely.
guy going to get to play again? The guy who hit them on the head with the, so he pays the fine. Does he get to play?
I believe he might be on bench for a while. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's consequences to those type of actions,
Yeah.
especially in like in the NFL.
Yeah, well, for sure, rightfully so. So, anyway, if you're out there listening, really consider all those possibilities about sportsmanship and the examples of sportsmanship that kids see, and maybe even, if many kids watch that football game, I'm sure. And so talk about it when you know about it so that you can ask kids, was that sportsman like, right? Were they being or were they doing something that was not okay? And I think that we can do that. But yeah, I think there's a big difference between what I call them Polly PE and Joe the Jock, right? I would be at best a Polly PE. And so if you want me to compete on this level, I can't do that for you, but I can have a good time and I could raise my heart rate. I could do that kind of stuff, right? So
Yes.
sometimes that gets raised just by sitting. No, I'm kidding. But anyway, so do we have questions on this topic now that we've kind of talked about it?
Yes, we do. Our first question is, why is teaching sportsmanship important for youth?
So I think it goes along with what you said about, you have to learn that lesson young in life so that you have it when you're an adult. And I think that it also why would I want to play with you if you're not a good sport, right? If I'm going to be a good sport, if I lose to you, you ought to be a good sport if you lose to me. And being angry and upset and it's not the way, right? Why would I ever want to play with you again? So I think that it's that, but I also think I think it can be the beginning of a long string of not good behaviors. So if I don't like losing, and that's and I'm sure, so it's first it starts with I don't like losing, okay? Then I think it moves to I don't like losing and it's your fault. Because
Mhm.
when you talk about the tennis player, I get you didn't like losing. I totally understand that. Who goes, "Yay, I lost." We don't like that. But to move to the next step, which is I don't like losing. I don't like losing and it's your fault I lost, is very problematic because then what we do is we move from I don't like to lose to it's your fault that I lost to me going to bully or push or try and get you to do things my way so that I don't have to worry about losing again. And that's very manipulative, right? And so that is no good for anybody. So if I can teach you as a young person to say, I don't like losing. I'm fine with that. I want you to not like losing. But I can accept that I wasn't as prepared as I should have been. I should have done something more had I really wanted to win, is completely different than allowing them to blame. And even when the fault lies with maybe somebody made a bad call, you have to be able to say, this bad call went against me. But I'm sure this person has made other bad calls that were in favor of me. Because people who make bad calls, which could be everybody and probably is, they can go for or against you. They don't all go against you, they don't all go for you, right? I know, and what I know about this, you could put in a thimble. But I was listening to members of my family talk about last year, not this year, football, but last year's football season. And they were saying that they were not a fan of Patrick Mahomes. And I said, well, who is he? And they told me who he was and that he'd won Super Bowls. And I said, well, why don't you like them? And they said, well, because referees make calls that are for him and that's not right. Well, I don't think that's about him. That's about, right, somebody else. But I think that that happens with people, right? Well, they liked you better, so
Yes.
they all, right, they gave you all the benefits. And maybe they did, maybe they didn't, right? Who's to know? But I think that we have to take that into consideration. And I think we need to help youth when they're young and it matters less to them, right? It's not that winning
Yeah.
doesn't matter, but it matters. It's not like you're going to lose out on going to the Olympics or something, right? I think when the stakes aren't as high, we need to teach kids about sportsmanship and that ability to say, I could have done more to mitigate this. I could have done better job of my own due diligence. So that's what I think. So that really just kind of added to what you said, but you may want to add more.
Oh, that was pretty good, Cindy. That was nice.
Yeah.
So to move forward for the next question.
Okay.
So it's how can I promote teamwork and physical education?
By
Teamwork.
creating teams and making them work as a team, right? No, it's kind of like Captain Obvious here, but that's not always easy, right? And so, one of the things I've seen programs do, which I think is really cool, when they're going out for physical activity, okay? And certainly athleticism takes it plays a role in that. But I have seen them take the two least athletic kids and make them captains and then have them choose a team. And that's always very interesting how that comes out. So that would, we're our team, even though maybe that's not the strongest person. Another thing I think you do is you reward as a team. So if you're super if you're the super athlete, so in sports, they have most valuable players, right? But it doesn't mean that everybody else isn't acknowledged somehow. So if you win the Super Bowl, everybody gets a Super Bowl ring, whether you played 20 seconds or you played nothing, right? Or you played the whole game. So they acknowledge the team and then they pick out a most valuable player for the team. So I think that's a possibility where you honor the entire team and then say who was the most productive for your team. So I think that's one thing you can do. I think that it's important to understand that everybody's skill set's not the same. I might be really, really good at running the ball, but I'm not very good at catching it. Right? Somebody else is really good at catching the ball, and maybe they can pivot, but not really run like the running back, for instance, right? So some people have there's an advantage to being a running back. There's an advantage to being a tight end. I'm saying this like I know all about this. I just hear it a lot, right? But those are their skill sets, right? And it's up to the quarterback to decide is it time for this running back to get to do their thing, or is it the time for the tight end to get to do their right? It's a process, and I don't know that you always pick that right, but you're promoting a team because if there's no, and I don't mean this in a bad way, but if you don't have a running game, if there's no threat that you can score on a running game, then you hurt your passing game because they know you're going to pass every single time, right? And if you don't have a passing game in football, you only have a running game. They know where to focus in on you every single time. And so that's why I think we need to realize that people need to value every position. Every position has a role to play. A blocker has a role to play, right? A quarterback has a role to play. The kicker has a role to play. And they're all valuable and they all do different things. And some people will never get glory because if you're just the person tackling everybody else, they go, great tackle, and move right on, right? So I think that that's important so that you have to promote the team and the advantage of being in a team in order to do that. I also think that in expanded learning, there are activities that you can do where you have to be a team to do it. There's one that's called the human knot. I don't know if you've ever done that or seen that done, but what you do is you stand people in a circle, okay? And they cross their arms and they take the hand of the person with their arms crossed, and they are now the team and they are all standing there with their arms crossed. And the challenge is without letting go of somebody's hands, working together as a team, unravel the circle. It's a lot easier to talk about than it is to do, right? But you're able to do that. So you're promoting the team. Maybe you're going to play a game like um, where it's group juggle and everybody's got makes a ball out of paper and you I only can throw it to you, Robert, and you can only throw it to somebody else, and it goes around the circle and it eventually gets back to me, and we do that and we set a pattern, and then I pick up the ball, I throw it to you, I say Robert, you throw it on, I pick up another one and say Robert, right? So that we're juggling this, but we're doing it as a team and it's fun. And so then you can sit down and debrief with kids. How did you work together as a team? How did that help you get the end result you wanted? Right? And I think that you have to talk about team because team's different than a group. Kids can be assigned to a group. Okay, we're going to be in group one. Maybe they're working for the same thing, maybe they're not. But if they're a team, they're all working toward the same objective and understanding that each of them is making a contribution in the best way they can. It's kind of like if you think about the body, your human body, it's a system that works together. How would your eyes be more important than your feet because your feet take you places? But how can your feet be more important than your eyes? Because with your eyes you can see things, right? Your body is a team. All those systems in your body are teams. They're team members that work so that you're healthy, that you can be active, that you can live the life you want. And if any one of those systems goes awry, the team does not work so well. So when you get a cold, the team, the team of you, your body suffers because you've got a cold. So if you're working as a team in a physical activity or a sport, and one of the aspects of the team doesn't go well, the body, which is all of your people, doesn't do as well. So I don't know if this NFL player that popped people on the head with their on with the helmet or on their helmet, I don't know if he was a prime player or not a prime player. It doesn't matter. They lost depth. They lost a member, right, of the team. And so they'll be less good as a team because they're trying to make up for that person. So I just think we have to teach
That's
kids that from early on, how to function as a team, how to work for the same goal, and we're all working toward it. So
definitely.
I think we a lot of times uh, think that groups are teams, and they're not. Teams are very special groups working towards the same thing, each person contributing their skill, right? That's why you don't see, you can see in basketball guards that are only 5'10" or so, but they're not the ones who are doing the layups under the basket, right? They're the ones who are getting the ball down the court. So everybody has a role, and I think that's important to emphasize.
Definitely. 100% agree with that. I
Yep.
would just say, like you mentioned, encourage activities that require collaboration and not just a competition.
Yep.
So that's a big deal. I know in the expanded learning program, the first years we used to in Arvin, when we do check-ins in the cafeterias, we used to have like this 1 minute game relays that we used to have,
Mhm.
and that would really get the students really pumped up and like if it would get them to know their after school classmates more.
Mhm.
They collaborated with Yeah, they were collaborating with students, because kids are like they have their own little groups, and like they don't talk to everybody in the classrooms, but that encouraged them to like be more of a team player and getting to know their classmates in the after school program. So those are little things that we used to do back then, like the 1 minute games challenges. Yeah,
Yeah.
they were provided by
And
you,
I
by
think
the
that's
way.
and I think that's
Yeah.
really important. And I think you hit it on the head. We
Yeah.
do things in cliques, right? If you were to go into a group of 30 people, wouldn't you try and sit by somebody you know? I would,
Yes.
right? And so that's what we do because I know them, I'm comfortable with them, and maybe I don't want to learn how to be comfortable with anybody else. But in a team, you have to learn how to be comfortable with everybody, right? And think of them. All right, so we ready to move on?
Yes. Our next
Okay.
question is what activities teach youth to handle winning and losing gracefully?
I think I think that you have to have activities. So so I don't know that you learn it in sports because you're there to compete and you're there to win. Now I think you can apply it in sports and I think you have to apply it there. And I think you can learn it if somebody sits down and talks with you, especially after a loss or after a victory, and how can you do this gracefully? So I think it can happen. But I think it can also happen at these physical activities and physical education pieces as well, so that they can take that learning when there's less at stake, so that they can implement that. So I think that everybody needs an opportunity to lose. How do you learn to lose gracefully if you don't often lose? So I I have two younger grandchildren, and they're both, especially the girl, are both academically, they have it together, right? And she loves the academic part. She loves math. She's memorized all her math back. Right? I know this. I know that. She knows all these things, right? And so one time she was telling me on her multiplication facts. She said, I can do my multiplication facts faster than anybody. And you know how you had those sheets of 100? right? Math facts
Yes.
on there. I said, really, is that right? She said, yes. She said, I win all the time. And I said, well, how do you, what do you say when you win? I say, I win, of course. Yikes, right? That's not anything we wanted to have. And I said, so you really think that you can beat anybody? She said, I can beat anybody. I said, well, let me make a copy of your sheet. So I did. And I said, you say go, and I'll do them as fast as I can, and you do them as fast as you can. She said, okay. So we did them. Well, needless to say, because I'm older, I finished faster, right? I've done that many times more than she ever had. She said, how did you win? I said, there's always somebody who can do it better than you. And even if you get to the top, right, you're the very best in the world. You are a Mark Spitz who was a swimmer, right? Won all those gold medals. There's going to be somebody, and they were, that came along after him that did even better, right? And then there's a new level. So think about all of the people who were Olympians who ran a mile in 4 minutes plus, right? Everybody said, there'll never be anybody better than you. Well, there wasn't until there was. And then there was somebody who ran an under 4 minute mile. Whoa, right? So all of us are in that position. You can be at the top of the heap, but eventually there'll be somebody at the top of the heap and it's not going to be you. So we have to, I think we have to experience that, right? And especially for kids that certain things come easy for, right? Because life is not always an easy button. It just doesn't work that way. Every day there are hard things to do and things that challenge you and things that aren't quite as easy as you thought they should be. Blah, 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 right? I could go on and on. And so we need to be able to help kids understand that. And that's learning to lose gracefully. But if you're the winner, it's also learning to win gracefully. If you're on a team and you're the MVP, and you don't acknowledge those other team members, shame on you. And I know Coach tells a story where he had a kid who was incredibly athletic and really skill developed. And the kid said, yeah, I don't need to be on a team. I can do this all by myself. And he said to him, great, pick the four people that you think are the lousiest. And he did. And so he had this one person who needed nobody else, right? Played these four people who were far less talented. Well, guess who won? The four people, right? Because he couldn't cover all of them. And he learned the lesson about being on a team matters. Doesn't matter if you're the superstar. You need a team behind you. And I think that we have to teach that. But you have to learn to win gracefully. You have to learn to say, it's not it what thank you so much for acknowledging my effort and what I did, but without my team, I couldn't have done it. So if you play a singular sport like golf, right? I mean, it's there's not a team behind you per se. Then you need to say, I appreciate winning. I need to thank all the coaches and teachers I had. I need to thank my caddy who supported me. I need, right? You need to acknowledge other people that helped you do that. And I think that that's part of how you learn to win gracefully. And then I think losing gracefully is to not escalate it from I wanted to win, and it's your fault that I lost, to saying I could have done this differently, so we had a better chance of winning. So I think that's how you teach that. Not an easy task for sure.
Definitely. Oh no. So I was thinking like, games that are like that you can rotating winners, like quick mini matches like I mentioned earlier,
Hmm.
and just swaps to normalize like both outcomes of winning and losing as well.
Hmm. Yeah, you need, yeah, right. You're not always going to be on top.
Mhm.
Top changes,
Def-
right? When I was in high school, they brought the Olympic gold medal pole vault champion to our school. And he pole vaulted 15 feet and something. he would not even make it to the Olympics with that now, right? If you're not at 17 plus feet, you're not going, right? But at the time, he was the best of the best. But his records have been replaced, right? And that's true for all of us. Every once in a while you get lucky to keep a record maybe for forever, but unlikely, right?
Somebody,
They break them all the time. Somebody comes along and for whatever the reason does it better. And we have to accept that. Okay, do we have another
definitely.
question? I think we have time for a couple more.
Yes, I do. Next question is, how can I use games to build resilience and perseverance?
Yeah, I think that's an important part, right? Resilience is the ability to bounce back. And so one of the things we used to tell the kids when they were playing a sport and they lost and they're just devastated, right? Oh, we lost, we lost, horrible. We said, okay, you have an hour to mourn that loss. Go ahead. It's awful. It's the most horrible thing that ever happened to you. Whatever that is, mourn the loss. We all have that opportunity. And then come back in an hour and we're going to create the plan to move forward. Right? I think that builds resilience and perseverance because it's not okay to say, you don't need to feel bad about it. You don't get to be in charge of how they feel. They feel how they feel. Some kids will look at a loss as a challenge, others will look at it as a devastating blow. No matter where they are on that continuum, you need to acknowledge it and you need to say, okay, take an hour, be sad, but we got to move on. And then you help them plot the new course. And then if the next week they lose again, you do the same thing because what they need to do is continue to tweak and refine and adjust their plan, their move forward, right? So that they can end up where they want to be. And I think that that's about resilience. I also think this for kids, especially younger kids, oh, I want to be on the team. I want to play soccer. I really, really, really want to play soccer. I want to do that. I just can hardly wait. And that's because they get to kick the ball around in their backyard and they get to do all this stuff that's fun and they're good at it. Then they get to practice and they go, "Hmm, wasn't
Mm.
as fun as I thought it would be." So, but they've made a commitment to be on the team. I don't think you let kids say, I changed my mind after they're on the team. You need to give them enough experiences before they join a team. Because once you join the team, you're committed to the team. And how do I teach you to persevere if I let you quit on day two because somebody hurt your feelings? Or you didn't get to kick the ball as many times as you wanted? Or, it doesn't matter. So I think that we need to help kids learn to persevere by insisting that they persevere. If you signed up for 10 golf lessons, you're going to finish 10 golf lessons. And at the end of 10 golf lessons, even though there's no team, you did it for yourself. We're going to ask you, is this something that you want to continue or is this something you want to give up? Right? But you're going to persevere through the 10 lessons you committed to. But too often, what I see is that kids commit to be on a team, it's not fun, and the next thing you know, they're not participating anymore. Uh-uh. You committed to the team. You committed to this many lessons. In tennis, you committed to this. Let's honor that, do the best you can, and then we're going to talk about whether you want to do more of it, less of it, or none at all. And I think that's how you teach perseverance and this resilience because when you fail, FAIL, is first attempt in learning, and that's okay. You're not a failure. You're a failure when you quit. If you don't learn, that could be a failure. But we're always learning and we're always becoming better, and we have to keep practicing. And if it stops mattering to you, so when I was a kid, I wanted to play the piano. And I worked really hard at it through eighth grade. And then I decided I didn't want to spend my time doing that anymore. So it's not that I can't play the piano, but I don't practice it like I did it when I was a kid. I practiced every single day. And now I play the piano once every 6 months. Does that make sense? And so it's
Yes.
you're resilient and you push forward on what you've committed to do. And then later you can say, I want to change my mind. I don't want to do that anymore. But not when you've made the commitment, in my opinion. And that's how you teach kids to be resilient in the face of losing and all of that. And you teach them to be perseverant. Two very
Mhm.
important life skills.
Mhm. I agree on that. For me, I would say like, introducing activities that have small challenges, that they'll progressively, start getting harder, like obstacle courses or
Mhm.
endurance tasks.
Like
And
that.
then, yeah, or then you could just, and then afterwards, celebrate the persistence, like such as finishing the course or not giving up, like even though they didn't win, as long as they didn't give up, like, that, so that could
Right.
teach them like just resilience, success through that.
I like that. And with an obstacle course, you could start with 5 obstacles, right? And then you could add a sixth and a seventh, right? I like that idea a lot. And you could have the kids build their own obstacle course. You could have two teams. One would build their obstacle course, this team would build theirs, right? And then they have to run each other's. And then you could flip flop them. So now you have to add to it to make it more difficult than it was before, but you're adding to somebody else's. That could be really fun, I think, to plot and
Right.
plan, right? Okay, I think we've got time. Well, maybe two, but one for sure.
All right. The next question is, how can I teach youth to respect referees and rules?
Yeah, that's tricky, right? Because especially if you've moved from I wanted to win and it's your fault I didn't, right? If you move to there. I think that for me, when I look at that issue of respect for the rule maker, it's the same thing as how do you teach kids to respect police, right? How do you teach
Mhm.
kids to respect a classroom team leader? How do you, right? Respect is respect is respect. And I either learn to be respectful of myself first. I have this standard of behavior. And because I respect myself, even though I'd like to yell and scream and rant and rave at you, I'm not going to do that because when I do, I am disrespectful to me and what I value. So I think respect, which is what you're talking about, starts with do you respect you? The second one is do you respect other people? Can you respect the fact that other people may not see or think the way you do? And it doesn't mean that you have to like it. It doesn't mean you have to agree it with them, but it does mean that you have to honor the fact that they have the right to their opinion, which may or may not be right for you, but they have the right to that, right? And I think that's important. I think that it's also important to give kids opportunities to see things from different perspectives. I've never done this, but I think it would be really cool to do, is to get this big giant ice cream cone and fill it to the top with all different kinds of ice cream and have kids make in a circle and then describe the ice cream cone they see. It will not be the same cone. It won't. And then they could eat the ice cream and it'd be fun, right? But I think that they need to learn that if you stand in a circle around something, right, you are not seeing the same thing wherever you're standing. So, for instance, all the people, Robert, that are viewing us right this second, what they can see is that you are in front of the Golden Gate Bridge in the San Francisco Bay. That's
Yes.
what they can see. That's what their perception is. If they're looking at me, it looks like I'm in outer space, right? And you can see the line of the earth and then the stars, and that's where I'm in. That's what they would see. If we could see them, if we were being able to look at them, you would not see them behind the Golden Gate Bridge and you would not see them in outer space. You would see something completely different. Well, can't that also be true for an umpire or a linesman or a referee that from where they're standing, what they see looks different than what you see. And I think we need to give kids those kinds of opportunities to say, what are you seeing? Now tell your partner and just have them stand, like partners face to face. Tell your partner what you see. Now you tell them what you see. How much of it was the same? How much was different? And then you can have them stand side by side and ask them, what do you see? And they will not see the same thing because your perception is grounded in what you're witnessing, but also in your lived experience. So they're not the same. And so I'm going to respect a referee because they have a different vantage point than I do. And they're going to make the best call they can based on where they're sitting. And my being mad about it isn't changing it a whit. It just makes me a bad sport. And that's what I think the message we need to drive home with kids. That perspective is your reality, but it doesn't mean it's the only reality on the topic. It can be different. That's why they like to do those cameras, right? They do the plays right on the cameras and they can appeal to the camera where they can actually physically see what really and truly happened because it just
Yes.
catches the images, right? But a
Yes.
person is flawed. A person is human. A person can make mistakes. And we have to
I
still
agree.
be respectful.
Definitely.
Okay.
With me, like I would say, like, model respect yourself, like, by addressing that, referees positively. So, before games, you can explain the role of a referee, which are like the keepers of fairness.
Yep.
Um,
I
yes,
like
letting them
that.
know. And then if there's a dispute that happens, you can usually like that'll be take it as a teachable moment to like to show that how to accept decisions respectfully, even if they disagree with the referee.
Right.
Like
And it's okay to disagree. It's just not okay to be disrespectful. Right? It can be one or
100%.
the other. I mean, it's not both and. It's you can be respectful even though you don't agree.
I
Agreement
agree.
doesn't equal respect. Okay, I think we have time for one last one. What's the magic question?
All right. Last question is, how can I address conflicts in competitive settings?
I think we've been talking all around that, right? But I think it's being able to identify what the conflict is and to understand that maybe what you need is a cool off period before you address it, maybe not. But I think sometimes when you're in the heat of the battle, right, it's really
Yes.
hard to back off and think logically because you're so emotionally in there and you made the wrong call, blah, 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 rather than going, right, and trying to figure that out. So I think that conflicts happen and they will happen. I also saw another one the other day. They were showing, and this dad and his son were at a baseball game, and they caught the home run. And this lady from, I don't know, 20 feet away from them came over and was
Oh,
yelling and screaming. Did you see that? And that ball belongs to
yes.
me, and you don't, rah, 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 rah. And I'm thinking, did you see that?
Yes, it was horrible. Poor, yeah.
And you're
She was
thinking,
not.
why do you think that ball belongs to you? She wasn't even close to them,
No.
right? But she was
Yeah.
having a hissy fit over that. And that was a competitive setting. And he handled it, I thought, really well,
Yeah.
right? But she
Could
was
have
she was
just.
out of control. So if one person's out of control, one of the ways you handle it is by being calm, right? Not rising to the occasion. Because on some level, that's what they're hoping you do. And then they have a reason for doing whatever they're doing. So I think that it's that, try and remain calm. But I think you also have to call it out and say, okay, this is what the conflict is. Do we need to back off before we can talk about it, or can we talk about it now? Because a lot of times with adrenaline pumping, you need just time to go. And that may take a while before you're able to do that. So when I look at that in competitive settings, If they cannot be respectful on their own, if they can't deal with it, then I think maybe you give them a timeout. You don't call it a timeout, but you ask them to just, I need you to stop and take a breath and reconsider where you're at. Because I think you can get caught up in the moment and just cannot stop yourself. And I think that's problematic for everybody when we do that.
Yes.
So that's what I think about this whole idea of sportsmanship, which I believe goes across the board to everything we do. I think there's sports, which is really about skill building and competing and at higher and higher levels. I think there's physical education, which teaches skills to everyone, but also teaches about muscles and the body parts and all of that and how systems work. And then I think there's physical activity, which is for people like me who aren't very athletic, but I can go out and have a good time playing a game that doesn't require this skill set that I don't possibly have. So I don't know if you have any final words or not.
And I think we you handle this really good, this
Okay.
topic.
So thank you, right? And I'll pitch that to you as well, but really appreciate those of you who come on board for this conversation about these necessary topics that I think we need to take a deep dive in so that we understand as well. So I'll let you have the
Right.
final word.
Well, thank you guys for joining us. We do appreciate you guys coming to watch our podcast. We also do have short clips that are also included on our YouTube channel. And if you don't want to see the videos, then you can also, always join us on our YouTube on our podcast, which is just audio, and it'll be on Spotify, so for kids as well.
All right.
So we do appreciate
Thank you. See ya. Bye.